What is up, everybody? Welcome into episode 39 of the Brahma Bullpen. Another winning Monday. Here we are, baby. Let's go Brahmas, 4-1. We got tons of information to get to. We got stats. We're going to break down some game footage. We're going to show you everything that happened in the game. But before we go any further, and while our largest audience is here, I got to show you some highlights from the game. San Antonio Brahmas went into Arlington's house, took over their field, basically turned it into cow pasture north for the Brahmas. Let's watch this highlight. Whoa, that is a scene straight out of Choctaw Stadium from this past weekend when the Brahmas went in there and just punted all those little Renegade balls right out of their own stadium. We ran the ball all over them. Before we go any further, I do have to say, I understand what you're going through, Hellraisers Podcast, part of the United Football Media Group with me. I don't want to just be mean and talk a lot of smack. You know, Arlington is kind of our rivalry. We had that whole A.J. Smith thing leading up to the game. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should be following the UFM and the SA Brahma Bullpen on Twitter. You'll know what I'm talking about. But A.J. Smith really wanted to win this game. I did talk to producer, and he came up with a perfect little video of an Arlington fan after this game. So let's just watch this highlight and see how Arlington fans felt after the Bullpen went up there and the Brahmas kicked their butts in their own cow pasture.
I can't do this anymore, man. My head's about to explode. My whole life sucks. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. My dad just died. We just killed Bambi. I'm out here getting my ass kicked, and every time I drive down the road, I want to jerk the wheel into a goddamn bridge in Buntman.
0-5. That's got to be a huge percentage of the Arlington fans, right? They just feel like they want to just give up for the season, but don't give up, Arlington. Fight for the league. Fight for Arlington. Fight for your fans. Let's do what we can do to get some wins. I don't think Arlington's the worst team in the league, even though they're the only winless team. I definitely think the Showboats and the Roughnecks are right there with them. But, hey, I digress. This game was crazy for the Brahmas. We had 3 turnovers. Dormady had like a sophomore slump. It's his second game of the season. He was awesome the first game. Second game, not so much. 3 picks. But the flip side of that is we only gave up 3 points off of 3 turnovers, which is crazy. A lot of it had to do with some of the play calling for Arlington, like going for it on 4th and 7 in their red zone right before halftime instead of just taking the points. You know, it wound up being a 15-15 ball game in the third, leaving 3 points on the board in the second quarter is kind of crazy. Some unconventional things happened, like the 3 turnovers, but also the number 1 DB in the league, Phillips, got burned deep for a touchdown, the lone touchdown for Arlington. You know, when you're a cornerback and you're watching game film or you're trying to predict where that receiver's going, all it takes is a half step, man, and you're burned. There ain't nothing you can do about it. So I truly feel Phillips is one of the top cornerbacks in the league. He's been playing great all year. He's the highest rated on the PFF QB cornerback ratings. It wasn't out at the time of filming this, or I would show you what the updated rating is, but he was number 1 going into the weekend. Our O-line completely dominated. Here's the week 5 stats. Obviously 25-15. We're now 4-1. Arlington's 0-5. 3 TDs to their 1. We scored 25 points on a 63% completion percentage. You can see Arlington had a 72% completion percentage. That's Luis Perez doing Luis Perez things. He passed for 270 yards to Dormady's 164. Perez is definitely not the reason the Renegades are losing. Some people are saying they want to see Scott come in there. You know, the University of Incarnate Word, one and only Lindsey Scott, the true dual threat quarterback. And when he does get in the game for a few series, but then, you know, they don't let him throw the ball, even though we know he can throw the ball. Like, I saw him throw the ball down here. But like we talked about, our O-line just dominated. We had 191 rushing yards, 7.9 yards per carry, compared to 66 rushing yards, 2.5 yards per carry for Arlington. That's pretty much all you need to know. Most of that came in the first half, too. The second half offense really wasn't clicking all that well, which is crazy. why some of the play calling for Arlington kind of messed things up. Their O-line gave up 2 sacks, so our D-line was able to get pressure on them. Our third down conversion, 4 of 9. They were 3 of 14. You'd like to see a little bit better than 50%, maybe that closer to 60%, 65% completion percentage on those third down conversions. But when Arlington's going 3 of 14, it doesn't really hurt you that bad, right? Red zone attempts, we went 2 of 4. They went 0 of 4. Penalties weren't really a factor in the game. We had 5 for 44. They had 3 for 25. Not a big deal. In the fourth quarter, like I was saying, it was a 7-point ball game. Brahmas are only up by 7. Arlington decided to go for it from the Brahmas' own 41-yard line instead of punting it and playing defense and getting a chance. There was 8 minutes left in the game. And our offense has been struggling, so some of the play calling was kind of weird for them. We even had some crazy stuff happening, like Dormany's helmet battery went dead during the game, which is crazy. How can you communicate? One of the positives was Corey Mayfield. He had a big strip tackle where he got the ball and returned it almost all the way back, so good for him. He was getting tackles in the backfield. What a great game for Corey Mayfield. But let's get into scores for the week. These are the rest of the scores for all of the games. Battlehawks scored. Every game was a blowout except for the Brahmas game, right? Battlehawks blew out DC 45-12. Quick hitter on this game. DC's cornerbacks were getting burned. They weren't unable to cover Butler, which we had the same problem when we played St. Louis. Of course, we only lost by 7. And DC just wasn't getting pressure on AJ, really. He was able to get rid of those balls quick. Even though they were down like 2 linemen, they were actually interviewing Coach Beck at one time, and they were like, hey, we got to put a tight end out there. We will, right? So they were like one injury away from having a tight end, having to play like guard or something because of the limited number of players allowed to be dressed. But crazy game. Battlehawks definitely beat DC. We're going into DC next week. We got next episode is going to be that preview, so tune in for that. I think that game's going to have huge playoff implications for the Brahmas and the Defenders. Then another blowout where the Panthers over the Showboats. Poor Showboats, of course. They did play a little bit better. Case Cookis did not play in this game. They had the backup quarterback Williams. He did a pretty good job. A little bit more mobile. At points in this game looked to be close, but ultimately the Panthers' rushing attack was too much for the Showboats to handle. They had 4 rushing touchdowns total. 3 of them were by Hills. And, he's on my fantasy team, so let's go, baby. Orange forward. Got me a lot of points this past weekend. And then the Roughnecks and Stallions. Stallions just dominated. Nothing else to say about the Stallions other than they're the best team in the league. Hands down, maybe the best team of all time for spring football, right? So let's just see what happens when they play a few more XFL teams. But the debate now is who's better, XFL versus USFL. We'll pull up the standings right here, kind of talk about that. The XFL conference, you see St. Louis at top 4-1. Brahmas are also 4-1, but St. Louis has a tiebreaker. You can see the Defenders at 2-3, and then Arlington 0-5. I think Arlington's pretty much out of playoff contention. I don't even think mathematically they can get in with everything going on in the league. DC Defenders are by no means eliminated, and if they can find a way to beat the Brahmas this weekend and get to 3-3 and put the Brahmas at 4-2, I mean they're right there. But if the Brahmas can do something, we'll talk about that in the preview. Go down to the USFL side. This is definitely like a one-team league. The Panthers and the Showboats, who are 2-3 down in the USFL, have both been beaten by the Brahmas. Houston Roughnecks are probably worse than Arlington, and Stallions are 5-0. Man, you guys are tough, hard to beat. But with that being said, let's stop talking about the league. This is the Cow Pasture Studios, the Brahma Bullpen on behalf of the United Football Media. And let's talk about Brahmas, man. So first drive of the game, we talked about it already. Our O-line was dominating. Our running game was off the hook. In the first quarter alone, Lovett and Ellison both had over 40 yards rushing each. So we were at 80 yards rushing in the first quarter with runs like this. Producer, roll the Lovett run video. Got a little juke, got a little stiff arm, baby. Let's go. That was a big run that ultimately led to a Santos field goal, made the Brahmas go up 3-0. We're going to take this opportunity to talk about Arlington's first drive of the game. So here we are driving the ball down the field, making big plays. Arlington gets a ball. They get a total of 13 yards on their first drive on 5 plays, and then their drive is ended. Let's say, welcome back, Mr. Delonte Scott. Roll the video.
Another ball game, but it's much easier for these guys to play from ahead.
Oh, Perez hit from behind. Another pocket collapses. Delonte Scott got in there first. Ward was coming along.
This is my Scott dance right here. Hey, man, almost a strip sack, right? So we stop them, win the drive, get the ball back, second drive of the game, and it pretty much ends like this. Yeah, baby. Big Mac TD. Do you see that little Dormady pump fake? Got that safety to move over. Mac wide open. Boom. Touchdown. Winds up being 9-0 at the end of the first quarter. Like I said, we had 93 yards rushing by the time the first quarter in, which is absolutely crazy. Arlington gets a field goal there, make it 9-3, and then we get our first Lovett touchdown of the game. Let's roll that beautiful John Lovett touchdown highlight. Bouncing off tacklers. Give him a bow, baby. Bouncing off tacklers. Just bouncing off tacklers. So now we're up. We get the ball back. Dormady goes and throws his first pick of the game. They get a field goal. We get a Lovett touchdown. No, excuse me. This was not the pick. This was when Arlington burns Phillips for a deep touchdown. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And they get their touchdown. It makes it 15-9. Then Dormady throws the pick. That ball went right through the hand of Akers. They get the ball. They start driving. But they don't get any points. And here's why. A.J. Hendy does what he needs to do to help us. We only give up 3 points off 3 picks, 3 turnovers, and it's because of plays like this. I just love to hear it, right? Ba-doom, 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 ba-doom. So we get that field goal block. The next 2 scores of the game are both field goals by Arlington. Makes the game a 15-15 game in the third quarter, which is, we talked about some of the play calling, them going for it on fourth down. It's just kind of crazy because the game was close. And then when we get the ball to start the fourth quarter, it's still 15-15, but then we do this.
Dormady up to the line. He scrambles back. Make sure they have the right amount on the line. Lovett on the run. Looking for the end zone. Touchdown.
Lovett's second touchdown of the game. Brahmas wind up, like we talked about, with 109 rushing yards. Our defense did everything they needed to do to stop them. Luis Perez played great. Their defense was not up to the task for stopping the Brahmas. And we're going to go ahead and announce our player of the game, the bullpen player of the game. We do this every week. It kind of turned into a Madden curse there for a little bit. But, hey, don't hate on me. We're kind of getting over that Madden curse. But our player of the game has to be John Lovett. I thought about Devontae Beckett. I kind of like to look outside the box for these players of the week. Beckett had 14 tackles, a 1 forced fumble. I'm like, man, dude, I really want to pick him. But our running game was dominant, and as you can see, Lovett had 2 touchdown runs and 95 yards. He had 13 attempts, 7.3 yards per run. Absolutely amazing. We get the win, 25-15. We go to 4-1. Watch for the preview video coming out next week. Before we get out of here, we're going to just throw up the little attendance numbers there. One of my rants, everybody like watching these attendance numbers. Arlington, 10,283. Houston, 6,285. What's going on, Texas? Do we love football or not? I don't know. It's all coming into question now. Maybe we should be considered like a soccer state. But DC, 16,058. Memphis, 7,640. DC, I think the stadium's only supposed to hold 15,000, so I don't know. They're putting people like in the concourse or whatever, but 16,000 inside Audi Field is amazing. Crowd was electric. They were kind of let down, not that great of a game, but Brahmas get the win. We're 4-1. The next preview episode, we'll talk about future playoff potential impacts that we're going to have when we go to DC next week. See if we can, DC hadn't lost a game in Audi Field in like never. And then they lost this week. Let's see if we can make it 2 in a row. As always, baby, we're going to end this with a nice horns forward. Let's go, Brahmas.